So let's switch to a snare drum, and we can really hear that too. So here's our, right? Here's our snare, and let's just get faster, right? So now I'll just have you put that machine in record, and we'll look at the levels it records. Okay. And then we'll adjust it. Instead of, right, we've done it, now we're getting more and more efficient, more comfortable. Hit play and record. And I'm just gonna hit play and record here. Oh, okay, this is a great showcase of recording on tape versus Pro Tools, okay? You can see that, let's put this here. This snare is at 0. There's a lot of signal here. We don't have much more to record here. Yet on the tape machine, we're at -5. So I can take my send and go 5 or 6 more dB, or 7, or 8. That's 8, that's too much. 7 dB more signal. So let's talk about that for a second. You can hit stop. So a lot of people ask why tape sounds better. And it's a bigger conversation. I don't sit there and say tape's the best thing ever. So the engineer that recorded that snare to Pro Tools did it on this console. And let's say they had their fader here and their mic pre at like 9 o'clock. Well, 8 more dB, 7 more dB is a good bit more on that mic pre. So that mic pre is getting into its sweet spot because we all like the vintage mic pre's. They were designed using a tape machine. So now we're in its sweet spot. If we're using a compressor, it's in its sweet spot. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So then the signal, even before you hit record, sounds better. Yeah. That's what's going on.
Whereas if you were to, just to make it extra clear, if you were to put that vintage preamp in its sweet spot, you're clipping your input converter.
Correct.
And so you can't do that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I'll use the word cold. You're sending it colder to Pro Tools, whatever. So we can see that difference here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So now we can, and it's just a great way to just organically show the differences in analog, I don't want to say headroom, what operating level versus Pro Tools or DAWs, right? So now that I've set my level just that quick, it's like, hey, it's around 0. Now you hit play and record, and I'll hit play and record, and I'll unsolo this. Again, we can keep working, just don't touch the snare level. On other things, print that whole thing, and then we'll go back and we'll line it up. Okay, so now we'll do the same thing. Thank you. You're getting better at your job. And you can see, now that I've level matched them, you can see the difference in the transients. It's crazy, right? So let's listen. Versus. I mean, it sounds like a different snare drum.
Yeah, and you were saying the transients, but when I'm looking at this screen that's a little further away, and I do see the transients, but I also see the resonance of everything in the room sound being brought up. It's a thicker looking thing, and it's a thicker sounding.
It sounds like the drummer just turned a lug.
Yeah.
Or did something to it.
So help us understand like what's going on there. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like hitting the tape machine a little bit hotter, and so that's turning down the transients, but it's also when you hit it hotter, everything else came up. So it's almost like a compressor where it's bringing the lower level resonance out in comparison to the transient.
Right.
Is that right? And
correct.
So is the tape machine like a compressor in a way?
A couple of things going on. The tape machine is just not that meter we see. There's electronics behind it, right? Those electronics are doing things themselves right? There's op amps. We offer transformers. You can push in with a button. Those are all doing things to the sound. Fundamentally, again, as I understand it, that VU meter is not telling us the whole story. Although the whole tape machine is set up to respond to that VU meter, right? If we had an LED only meter, it would be flying up to plus 18, right? Like there are machines that have like little LED below the VU meter. I can't use them because they're always flashing and it's freaking me out. But this says, oh, that snare drum is hitting +1. No. Those hyper transients you see on the non-tape version are hitting who knows what. But the tape, analog tape, is a bunch of metal rust particles randomly aligned. And that record head aligns them as the tape is moving. It's inefficient, right? Just like a tube amp is inefficient, right? But we like it. Yeah. We like it. The same thing. It's not getting all of them, right? And that's what we're missing. So it's an inefficiency that gets us the things we want. Yeah. Within a DAW, that meter is showing you every single thing that's coming in at the rate it's coming in. And you have to adjust the whole signal for that. But we don't want that hyper peak. We want the beef, and that's what tape shaves off for us. So we're using this machine calibrated. Its functions are inside the machine that we can adjust with a screwdriver. Super easy. However, the designer said, well, you're not always going to want to do that. The designer of the machine. So you see those knobs in the front that are very tempting? So flip up the switch underneath the right knob, the other one. Yep. Now that knob controls our record level. If you hit play and record.
Oh, that's a little bit counterintuitive.
It is.
So this is the input control.
I know, it is.
And that's the output?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
I know, it is a little backwards. So if you hit play and record, and I send you a snare signal, then you take that knob and you just crank it up. Just crank it. Keep going. There you go. Okay. So now that's going to clip our return. So now you flip the other switch. Yep. And turn that down. I call this 1176ing it. There you go. Perfect. Okay. So now we're going to record that super hot level just for that one little snare fill. Right? So I'm going to punch in. Right? And then now in Pro Tools, thank you, you can hit stop. I'm just going to trim this down a little bit, line it up, and again, the more creative you get, the faster this is. I'm trying to talk and do it. So now, we're not going to put this up there. We're just going to use this track as a parallel compression track for that one hit. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, what's great is that I don't have to really memorize where I was before.
Correct.
I just flip that switch back down and we're back where we were.
Cow.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And this, that beef, man, I use like parallel compression in a DAW all the time, and it just never really sounds right. For some reason, this parallel compression sounds great. And like any snare fill, there's probably 3 or 4 more of those. I can just do that. Bam, bam, bam. When you're done, you flip those switches down. I could do this with a drum mix, smash it, have it in there, whatever. So, we're just stepping over rabbit holes as we go along.
Well, and this is creating movement, it's creating excitement through the mix. Like we do mix reviews for our members, and it's not me who's doing the reviews, it's somebody else, more like you, who's been mixing for a long time professionally. And what comes up all the time is make movement, like add flavor as the song progresses. And I feel like this is a way to do that. You have that snare hit, and that doesn't mean you have to change something globally on the snare channel to give it that. True. It's even better if you augment it here and there and give those points in time meaning and movement and excitement.
Yeah, and from a mix engineer standpoint, the person doing it, this is kind of flowy. We're doing it, there's a machine moving, I'm punching in, right? So it's not like trying to automate a plug-in, which is just like the 7th circle of hell as far as I'm concerned, right? And making that right and having to flip to like, drawing things.
I think that point you make about it being an enjoyable process, it's fun. People are scared about AI and should we even make music anymore? I mean, if you're asking that question, I think I don't think the people who love making music are asking that question. Correct. Because they don't make it for the end result. They make it for this sort of thing, this sort of process that's behind it. Yeah. And will your client notice it? Sometimes no, but will you have felt like, man, I feel proud about that day I just spent, working on this? Yeah.
Well, and speaking of pride, which is important, let's say you send this mix to your client, like, man, that snare, like, what'd you do? Yeah. And you say, man, I used my tape machine. I think that client is going to feel more special because you bought a piece of equipment that not everyone has and applied it on their music in a specific way. That's theirs. It's only theirs. It's not, no shade on plugins, but it's not a decapitator preset that anybody can use. So this mix, this song that this client, this artist wrote and recorded is now mixed in even a more special way for them. Yeah, tomorrow we couldn't do the same sound, you and I, right, with the same setup. We couldn't even do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. And I think when I think back to my favorite records, part of what makes me love them so much is the documentaries I've seen of how things worked. And you hear this weird sound, oh, that's the bathroom next door flushing the toilet. Yeah. It's these things that have a story behind them, and I don't know. That's, as AI is taking over the creativity, I'm trying to hold on to what is actually creativity. And I think it's stuff like this that we're doing today. Something else I think that builds upon that is that you could try to re-engineer that. Like you said, I tried to do this with a compressor, and a compressor by nature is non-linear, just like this. But the thing about non-linearity is that it has so much nuance. So this thing is non-linear, meaning you send a little bit more input level, it responds differently. You send a different frequency balance to it, it responds differently. The way that this is nonlinear is entirely unique as well.
Correct.
Which is really cool.
I mentioned, I inadvertently threw a little hate on a plugin, but you could do the same process and add a plugin prior to this for this one little smattering of the snare. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you're just opening up all your toolboxes, grabbing all the tools, mashing them together, and you're getting things that you can't always predict the outcome.